All right. So this is Sarah Milligan with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at the Oklahoma State University Libraries. Today's date is December 5th, 2022. I am interviewing Gary Clark today as a part of the Doel Reed Center History Project. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the creation of the Doel Reed Center and the relationship between Martha Reed and moving the estate to the OSU Foundation and OSU. All right. So let's start a little bit about you and your relationship to OSU and why were you part of this conversation?
Sure. In June of 2004, I was hired as the Vice President and General Counsel at the OSU Foundation. So I was operating in that capacity during a lot of the early years of this relationship with Martha Reed.
And so when did you become involved with the conversation about the Reed property in Taos?
I don't recall the exact date. And by the way, as we discussed prior to the beginning of this, I've given you my written recollections that I had prepared about 4 years ago that, give the general idea. But somewhere in, I know from going back and looking at things, somewhere in the 2005, 2006 time period that I got got a call really from Melinda Berry Fisher, asking, is this something that the foundation would be interested in helping to accommodate? And, after talking with the then president of the foundation, Kurt Jewell, we thought that this is something that we might be interested in. And that the big question was, is this something that the university would actually use and, want to have, not just a gift that then you sell, or something like that, but actually implement kind of what we understood Martha's interpretations was. So I remember calling Sally McCorkle, and I said, is this something she said, absolutely, I'd be very interested, and I'll be right over. And so, she came, within minutes, really, of the first conversation about how might this be used by OSU. And she developed some very, in my opinion, at least, thorough ideas and for here's how the project be used, and by not just by art students. Given that Doel Reed had been the chair of the OSU's art department for 35 years before his retirement, and was really a really world-renowned artist on his aqua tints, and that's what I have to admit, I didn't know any of that before this all started, but it became quite clear, early on that, that he was a very significant artist in his own right, and his contributions and work here at OSU had been very foundational, really, to our art department. And so that's kind of where we got started.
So the conversation started with Sally McCorkle, and she was the head of the art department at that time, correct?
Yes, she was.
So I'm interested about that initial enthusiasm too, because so you called her because of the art connection to just see if it was something that could be used.
I just looked in the directory to see who was. I didn't know Sally McCorkle at all. Okay, here's the head of the art department. That's who I need to talk to. And as I said, she was extremely enthusiastic about it on the phone, and then when we met, and then throughout this whole relationship. Like I say, Sally, got things off the ground in a significant way. She came back. I remember meeting with her after the first students groups went out there, and then seeing the product of their work while they were out there. It wasn't throw things together and hope it works out. A lot of thought went into it, and at least it appeared to me that these students really thoroughly enjoyed what they got to do out there.
So when you talked to Sally, I want to come back to that in a second, but when you talked to Sally, did the OSU, the university administration, were they on board?
Yes, I think, some of this is beyond my knowledge.
Sure.
But things that, I've read about since then, that, obviously they needed to have the dean, she's the head of the department, but, okay, the dean says it's okay to, dedicate university resources in, terms of teachers and things of that sort. So it's, an extensive involvement. And so, Dean Sherwood at that time, Peter Sherwood was the dean, and I think he was on board. And I think he went to Taos. Again, all that was kind of without my knowledge, I guess, at the time. But I know since then that happened. Mm-hmm. So it was a matter of getting those involvement. And there's other involvement too. Like I say, I don't want to go too fast past Melinda Berry Fisher, because she, not only got us off and running by saying, hey, is this it? And attending meetings and that sort of thing. And then ultimately, making donations to help us acquire property, that Martha was selling to keep herself going. And so we were concerned, well, gee, this is going to go with. So we got appraisals of art pieces, and Melinda and her husband, Dick, donated funds with which we could acquire those properties, along with people like Bob Parks, and who made significant contributions to help getting this going. And again, I wasn't working directly with him much. Some, but not a lot. So we, like I say, this is a project which has many very helpful participants, and I can't say that without anyone's contributions it wouldn't have happened. But Kent and Jeanette held Martha's hand throughout this entire process, and communicate with me about her, what her significant issues were. She had health issues and things. And so it was a project that brought in a number of people along the way. Mm-hmm.
So when you were brought into this, it was really framed as, explaining who Martha and the Reeds were and what the property is, and just trying to figure out what it would look like to make the acquisition. And so maybe talk to me a little bit about, once Sally McCorkle was like, yes, we've got so many ideas, and that the ball started rolling, did you go out to Taos and meet Martha? What was your situation?
We went out to take a look at, I don't know if John Houck, his name has come into this, but he and I and our spouses went out to Taos to look at the property to kind of get an idea, okay, is this something that can be salvaged? And in his opinion, it could be. It actually probably involved more work than what we originally envisioned, ultimately to preserve the property. But at least, to determine that it wasn't just going to fall in, and that was important, and to know. So we went out for a weekend and just to examine the property, and had dinner with Martha, and we enjoyed. We took her to her favorite restaurant there in Taos, and like I say, she was a character. There's no question about it, and she liked being the center of attention, which was wonderful. And of course, I'm sure others have talked to you about the Martha's of Taos shop that she owned, and the broomstick skirts that she kind of originated, designed, and all. So, so we did go. I'd say, and probably it's important to understand that the way the original idea was presented didn't end up being the way things were done. Mm-hmm. And so originally it was going to be, a gift from her estate. And we ended up, it was clear that she didn't have enough income from Social Security, whatever else she had. So she was, selling off things fairly rapidly, or so it appeared. And so I suggested the idea of what a charitable remainder unit trust that we would, create. She would transfer the property into this, and we could pay her a certain percentage of the value over time, and that she said she needed about $2,000 a month originally, and so we calculated it, and the value of the estate was such that she could do that, and so we went down that road. But then it became clear that that wasn't enough money, and over a period of time. And so I suggested, and she needed a certain amount. A unit trust is a percentage of the value. So that's not a definite dollar amount each month. So she wanted a definite dollar amount each month. So we said, okay, so why don't we go with this charitable remainder annuity trust? And so that would generate this, you'll get this much money each month, no matter what. And we went that route and, got that set up, but then it was clear that that wasn't enough money still that she needed, at least from her perspective. And she did have greater care needs and such as time went on. So in talking with Kent, like I say, he and I were probably in regular communication kind of all through this entire period. And so I suggested the idea that she had a remainder interest. Okay, so that comes here. So I said, well, what if we bought that from her and put it in an irrevocable trust? Because the problem was people were taking advantage of her there, right and left, at least from what I was being told. And so if we did that and we put it in an irrevocable trust that Kent was the trustee, he could dole the money out as she needed it and not just have everybody taking her money. And he was willing to do that, which is a significant contribution on his part. And she thought, was willing. So we arranged to buy the property, the remaining interest that she had in the property, from her, and have it, knowing that under the terms of the irrevocable trust, it would come to the foundation at her death. And so Kent had the funds in that to take care of her. And then at the same time, we got that other piece of property that we knew we had, and it was going to take care of her for the rest of her life. And I don't really know the details on how all that worked, but as far as I know, like I say, Kent was absolutely devoted to Martha and her family. I mean, he had been friends with Doel Reed and Jane, Martha's mom. And so he was doing this just really out of loyalty to them. And like I say, I will forever be grateful to him for all that he did on behalf of Martha.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. That's true.
Yes, it was. He's an OU grad. He's not an OSU alum, but like I say, he was a friend of the family. That was the main thing.
Well, I think actually that's a good point, because it seems like there were multiple plans for the property at different points. So it sounds like before the conversation started with OSU that originally Doel and Jane had said that the property should go to the Cincinnati Art Institute, because that's where he graduated from. And that would have been, I think, in the 80s when he died. It sounds like that was sort of the plan. And then at one point, OU was courting them, I think. That's
what I understood, yes. I don't know any details about that. And it was, Martha, her will provided that it went to the Cincinnati Art Institute. So I don't really know, to be honest, I don't know about what Doel and Jane intended, but that's what Martha had in her will, because that's where her parents had graduated.
I see.
And but I guess, and again, I wasn't party to it, but my understanding is that, she'd had a conversation with Kent and Jeanette about this and express that, well, my will says this, but I really would rather it go to OSU because that's where my dad, had such a great impact. And Kent said, well, if that's the case, then we need to, get in touch with them and see what it would take. And that's kind of like, say, I think he may have gone through another person that I didn't know anything about until I read his recollections, but I ended up talking to Melinda Berry Fisher, who was probably just the right person for several reasons. And she, kind of got the ball rolling, and then, like I say, called me to say, is this something you'd be interested in? And that kind of led to us having a meeting with Martha when she was coming here, I think, for her high school reunion, and, where she said, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And that kind of, like I say, we kind of started, and that was a long dance. And we kind of put things out, and I had some difficulty getting some responses from her attorney in Taos that kind of delayed things, in my opinion, more than it needed to be. But eventually we got there, and so, like I say, it was a long process. A lot of people, Bill and Kat Thompson, that were good friends and that helped her, and were involved with the project getting formed, and how to use this in Taos, because they would go out there for, I think, about 5 months over the summer and early fall. So they'd be around Martha and kind of see some of the things that were that people were taking a huge advantage of her, unfortunately.
So even to clarify that, she had, I think, a lot of folks from the community that were helping out as caretakers as she needed, or drivers, or just to come out and check on her, and property assistance and things like that. Do you think that she knew any of that? Do you think that played into part of trying to wanting to settle the estate in the way she did?
That's hard to say. To be honest, like I say, I think initially I don't know that there were people taking it so much advantage of her before she kind of had the conversation with Kent and Jeanette.
I see.
I think that happened later as she became more infirm. And needing more help and whatnot. And again, I'm sure, it's been mentioned by several people that one young man in particular that was using her to basically for his own income, and taking significant advantage of her, and who knows how much, to be honest. No way to know. It's unfortunate, that. I mean, we hear about elder abuse, all the time, and it's a sad fact that it happens. And in some cases, I think there were people who genuinely did care for her. There were some women, I think, who helped her and did so on a fair basis, as far as I know. And Martha certainly could have made gifts to them out of her appreciation for what they did, for her. So. Like I say, the one man in particular is the one that I've just heard enough about that I feel pretty confident that he was taking significant advantage of her, and would have, I think he offered to marry her even though he was 35 years younger than she was. And the sense was that, he was doing that in order to inherit the property from her. And so that was an unfortunate thing for her, But as it is, like I say, even though, the original idea that this was going to be a gift to OSU, it didn't really end up being so much of a gift to OSU because of what all was given to Martha to acquire the property. But ultimately, I think the idea was to recognize the contributions of Doel Reed, to OSU in particular, and the art world generally. And so I think at least that goal was accomplished. And again, due to a lot of people, and under Melinda Berry Fisher's and Dick Fisher's help, Bob Parks, Sally McCorkle, Bill and Kat Thompson, and like I say, obviously Kent and Jeanette is overriding. I mean, throughout the whole period of time, and then of course President Hargis, who was on the Board of Regents at the time we acquired, got the process started. But he jumped in and was very supportive, from the get-go. And then, as I may have mentioned, others have, that he and Ann endowed a professorship to be able to have a director of the program to ensure that it could continue. And along with fundraising with others, people that he knew who supported the arts, and the idea of OSU being involved with the arts. So we've been very successful in providing some of the funds necessary, because the renovations really were far more expensive than what we had originally. And perhaps, like I say, I think the scope changed. It went from just kind of maintaining to, okay, we need to have a first-rate place for students, for residents and artists, artists in residence, and that sort of thing. And so it's developed into quite a program.
How did the scope change happen with that? So initially the conversation was, we'll have the property and just keep it as is and people can go out. And
Yeah. Well, and of course at the time, Martha was still living there in her house. And then her parents' house, I think I can't remember now, it was more than 100 years old. And of course, so original adobe, and so, trying to, how you maintain the historical context at the same time, upgrade. And so we ended up, like I say we, not me, but OSU ended up saying, okay, well, this is kind of what we need to do. And I think create some areas outside that they could use for, teaching opportunities and that sort of thing. So, but to maintain like his studio and restore it, because I guess really it had been some 30 years, since he had passed away, since Doel Reed had, and I don't think much, if anything, had been done to maintain it during that time. So, like I say, it was more expensive, and then there are things like getting rid of, there's a big highline wire in front of it. So, the efforts leading to, getting that change and a right of way given to, kind of take that kind of unsightly big transmission line off the front of the property. So, like I said, there have been just a number of things through the years. And again, many people involved, all of whom I don't really even know the extent of, how much they've done.
Well, and I think some of the conversations I've heard have revolved around architecturally what could be done. Like they're Nigel Jones talked about the original thought was that there could be some dorms built on the property.
Yes.
But the zoning wasn't
Right.
going to allow for that.
Right.
And so you mentioned your call with Sally McCorkle, and so calling just to see, if there was interest, and she immediately came up with some plans. And so maybe let's talk a little bit about what you know about, her work and what her vision was, because it sounds like she was doing a lot of that while Martha was there. Correct?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, she would go to Taos periodically, and her mom would go with her. Who became, I think, very good friends with Martha. And so it wasn't merely a professional relationship, but also a friends, good friends, not just friends, I guess. But so Sally, and again, I'm not going to know all the details, but again, she came up, very quickly with what seemed to me to be a very full and complete plan for how this could be incorporated into an educational program that would involve not just OSU students and not just art students, but landscaping students. I can't remember all of them, but it was a multidisciplinary approach. And have students go out there, say, for a 2-week period of time or longer, and then to have an artist in residence. So it might be, actually a person who paints. It could be a novelist, and that sort of thing, so that our students could go out there and spend time with someone who had, some reputation in whatever area of expertise they had.
Mm-hmm.
So those were, some of the things. And like I say, they did. It wasn't just go out and have fun, but they had a project that each of them, a project that they worked on while they were there, and then you get to see the results, of that. And then in addition, the idea was to have our OSU alums to participate in projects out there and classes and such. So, and that's continued, to this day, and I think been very well received.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you first talked to Sally McCorkle, did she know who Doel Reed was?
I don't remember her saying, "Oh yeah, I know who he is," but my sense is that she knew exactly who he was. That's one of the reasons that she was so excited about it.
Mm-hmm. So you also, we talked a little bit about the support from Bern and Ann Hargis in developing this, and I talked to them not too long ago, and they were talking about being some of the first people who were sort of sent to scout the space because of their time that they spent in Taos on their own. And so I wonder if you all had conversations early on, or if they were part of the conversations that you were a part of, sort of thinking through that cost benefit analysis. I'm sure that you all were doing.
Yeah, well, and again, from our, the perspective I had was, the foundation, the foundation exists to unite university priorities and donor passions. Okay, so the idea was, okay, is this a university priority? Because if it's not, we shouldn't be pursuing this. Mm-hmm. And so, that became, I think, clear, very quickly from Sally's, her immediate response and her follow-up, not just, oh yeah, I'm really interested, but she got to work on, okay, here's what we should do. Burns became president of the university in March of 2008. And as it happened, he had talked with me and asked me to come and join him. And so we started on the same day at OSU. Right. Yeah. So I kind of switched, at that point in time, we were still working on Doel Reed, and the foundation hadn't yet hired a new general counsel. So I was just kind of donating my services, during that time to work on various aspects, including Doel Reed and all other kinds of endowment agreements and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But Burns, like I say, as president, was, very supportive of the Doel Reed project, putting together the committee to, help supervise it, and his I know that Rick and Larry Cooper made a very sizable donation at Burns' request, talking with them, and so I can say all through this, I can say behind while he was a regent, I wasn't so involved with him, before he became president. And so I don't know, I know he was involved, but I don't know the extent. After that, like I say, it was, working closely, trying to really, what I would say, fully implement the dream. Mm-hmm. And, we obviously, Martha was, in failing health, as time went on, and but when they would be out there, they would spend about a month in Taos each summer, and so they would communicate with her and with others out there, the Bill and Kat Thompson, I know at least. So they were kind of, like I say, had a lot of involvement, kind of throughout the process. Mm-hmm.
speaking about the sort of the details of the work as well, you mentioned that Martha Reed had a family attorney, it sounds like, who
Yes.
that you were working with.
Uh-huh.
Did you get a sense of that individual's, like, was there a lot of support in this process, or was that, because it seems like that person was also her parents' attorney? Is that also correct?
Could
or
have
am I
been,
remembering?
yeah. I don't really remember that one way or the other. Well, to be honest, my sense was that that he was supportive. I mean, and there were a few things that I had to kind of provide kind of some legal guidance on that he wasn't familiar with so much with some of the charitable remainder trust, that sort of thing. But my sense was that he had a lot going on, and that this wasn't necessarily his highest priority. It seems to take longer than that I thought should have taken. I mean, and it wasn't like we were rushing things, but I mean, just things would take months, and when they should be done in a week or two. It seems like at times, and that probably even became true on the estate, getting things wrapped up. I remember talking with Kent a number of times because he was named as the personal representative of her estate. And so I'd say I never felt like he was opposed to it or anything of that sort, just that it wasn't, things didn't happen as quickly as I might have thought they could have or should have.
Mm-hmm. Looking back on the process, are there things that you would do differently if given the opportunity of hindsight?
I don't really think so. I mean, because we were adjusting to things as they happened, in terms of her health and money. I mean, obviously it would have been nice if we'd been able to set it up and it had just been a gift, to OSU and done. But I mean, I really feel like that we've been way over backwards to try to take care of Martha and accomplish the general goal of geting that property within OSU's control. Mm-hmm. And all things considered, because I think people would have taken huge advantage. I mean, they did, and probably would have done more so if we hadn't helped. And again, I did a lot of that work with working closely with Kent Young to again try to, as nearly as we could, make sure that Martha had a good life, and as healthy as we could help her to stay, and at the same time, fulfill her general wish that this asset ends up coming to OSU. Mm-hmm. And so, I personally believe that it's a wonderful asset to have as a part of OSU, and I hope we continue to take advantage of it, and to continue to have our students and our alums, going out there and participating, because Taos is a really an unusual place, and it's within probably about 9 hours, 9.5 hour drive. Mm-hmm. So it's, you can get there without too much trouble. And so, it's something that I'd say I believe will be, a part of our history and elevate the arts within OSU, which certainly was a goal of President Hargis. That and the McKnight Center, I mean, have really, I think, changed the way people feel. I'm an ag major myself, but I'm proud of, the fact that we have some really very talented people who are artists, musicians, really vocal artists, so I'm really proud of that fact, and like I say, it makes us a better university.
Have you ever attended any of the summer courses? I
haven't had the chance to do that yet. The one that I have no artistic ability at all myself, and so but they have others. Like I've thought about the fly fishing course in particular, for example, and it just hasn't worked out timing wise for me yet. But I do intend to. In fact, I was talking with a good friend, a month or two ago about the possibility of going out and participating. I think he was pretty fired up about it. So hopefully we'll get a chance to do that.
Mm-hmm. I just had one more thought when you were sort of describing the retrospective process. Do you think if it would have been presented to the foundation and your role as the counsel on that as a purchase instead of a donation, do you think that it still would have moved forward?
That's hard to say because the interesting side of that is, okay, you have somebody who's willing to sell you something. Mm-hmm. Then going out and finding donors to help buy that. Would there have been a champion to do that? And would that, at the time, if Sally McCorkle, I don't think she would have had the contacts to say, okay, hey, would you people donate money to help make this happen? So I think that might have been different. In other words, the foundation doesn't have money just lying around to buy, let's go do this and let's go buy that. I mean, they invest, but it's not, this is not something you get a return on your investment, a monetary return. Hopefully we get a very significant return otherwise. So, yeah, I mean, it obviously it's just speculation, but I think it probably wouldn't have progressed. If there hadn't been some gift element there. Obviously, with a charitable remainder trust, there's something going to the donor, and so but there is still a charitable part, or otherwise you wouldn't get a charitable deduction, and so that's really what the foundation is working with people who are donating, and so. Just an out-and-out purchase. I doubt that would have happened, probably.
During your time at the foundation, were there many other property donations that you worked through?
There were other donations, and for example, people who would donate farms. We, had a farm donated, a ranch, I guess, donated for research purposes. And so you have those kinds of things, and you do have people who just donate their estate or some portion of their estate to the foundation, and maybe to create scholarships or whatever they might. In some cases you know about those, in other cases you don't know about them. They just happen, and so that's nice. And but yeah, that's real estate itself. It's not an everyday occurrence, but it does happen.
In the whole context of this, I've just been so focused on thinking about the Reed property more specifically. I didn't know how unique it was.
Oh, yeah. I would say it's unique, in the sense that it had both historical connotations, but then also what I would think of as future oriented use. How you could use this, to fit into our artistic programs and such. So this was. A unique situation, and one that, as I said, I'm very pleased and proud that we were able to get it done. And if you've thought about it, there were. This is one that was kind of babied along by a lot of people. And otherwise, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. There's obviously a lot of people that were involved in the long process between starting the conversation and
till
settling the estate,
and and even then kind of getting the renovations done, and kind of getting it to where you can really use it to its maximum potential.
Mm-hmm. Did you have to make allowances for property upkeep while Martha was still living there?
Well, to some extent, I think, it kind of like there were some kind of initial repairs, probably more, I guess maintenance might be a good way to describe it, to kind of keep her parents home, because she was renting it out to someone, and she was getting the income from that. And so But there, when I think the foundation got into ownership, then there were some. I don't remember the details, but I think there were some things done to roof repairs or something that kind of keep it from falling into greater disrepair. But like I say, and then over time, and I haven't been involved with the more substantial renovations and such that were done there.
Yeah. Well, and we've had some folks talk about that.
Okay. Nigel would be the guy.
Yeah. It was a lot.
Yeah. Right.
It was a lot. Well, I think those were the big points that I wanted to try and ask about for clarity. Just sort of unpacking the larger process for how the Doel Reed Center came to be a part of OSU.
Right.
So I don't know, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about that we missed?
No, I can't think of anything else. As I said, I tried to give my general recollections in that writing, and so you'll have that, I assume, to keep with all this. And that'll, I did spend at least a decent amount of time trying to be as precise as I could be, given the lapse of time, and memories are not always clear. I'd say, to be honest, like the main thing I would that I hope to accomplish today was to say thank you to so many people that that have been a part of this, and how much I'd say there's no. I don't think you can just say, okay, this one person made it happen. I mean, obviously that probably could be true of Kent and Jeanette, that, the efforts they made and he continued to make all through this. But we still needed, people who donated money to, help my art to kind of keep Martha afloat for a while until we could get something in place. And again, that took time. Again, more time than I would have liked, but at least it did take time. And like I say, you have these people who donated their time to help take care of Martha. So like Sally and her mom, who went way beyond anything that you could have expected from someone to do. Bob Parks, who, again, just out of the generosity of his heart and his fondness for Doel Reed, his respect for Doel Reed, what he did. And there were just more people than I can name who played a part in this. And again, I think we'll continue to see. Hopefully, we'll see the fruits of those labors and donations of funds and everything else down through the years.
Well, thank you for coming in and sharing all that extra information. And I will say that a lot of the numbers, I was really appreciative that a lot of the numbers and the figures from the house and the estate and everything in your notes were really helpful to also see.
Yeah, okay, well, good. Well, but and I didn't mention, I don't think Melinda Berry Fisher and her husband Dick just then, and so that would be a horrible oversight. And it's hard to name everybody. I need a list here to make sure I don't overlook anyone, because like I say, there's a lot of credit to go around.
Well, and Melinda Berry Fisher was, she was the head of the foundation board, correct?
She was yes, at that time she was back. I think she was the chair of the board of the foundation. She had been the interim president when the initial conversations were taking place, or had, I guess, at the time they started, she had finished her time as interim president and was back as chairman of the board. But she, like I say, not only helped shepherd it in a, what you might call a supervisory role, but also as a donor to help. Okay, we need to come up with some funds here. Dick and I will donate the money to help buy some of these assets that she was selling to people, and may or not have been getting what they were worth. And so we had them appraised, and she received the appraised value of them.
And so that was primarily artwork from her parents and some of her own art and material culture
It's primarily what we were acquiring. I say we, the
foundation.
People were donating money to the foundation to make the purchase, so it came through the foundation.
So the foundation were then owners of all of that material. Okay,
right, and and I believe those were all Doel Reed's. So not just other pieces of art and stuff that she had.
Okay.
But like I say, it was just a kind of a miracle, probably, that it all held together as well as it did, and like I say, everybody played a part in helping to make that all come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.